This next lesson is following the line of just a couple basics. Of course, we go with the first thing, which is establishing how it is you feel comfortable meditating, whether or not that's sitting or standing. And I gave a couple links to some ways of doing that. The next one, I went ahead and just introduced just the value of making time for yourself, for that mental hygiene, and doing something for your mind. If you brush your teeth because you don't want your breath to smell when you talk to somebody during the day, or your teeth to go yellow, and you take a shower, at least every day or almost every day, so you don't stink a little too much. We do that daily for exterior things, but what we really meet people with, which is with our minds, we don't do anything for. At least generally we don't do much for. And these days, if somebody falls into a kind of habit, working out has been known to give some degree of a meditative kind of state that gives a little state of calm. There's a couple endorphins that get going in the mind that creates almost a pseudo-meditative state. Same thing with being in nature for extended periods of time, and a couple other things. But generally, we really don't make time for any of that. We kind of just, rough it. And we're generally pretty rough around the edges for having not done so, at least something for ourselves. The next thing was having to do with the focus of where your attention should be and what meditative awareness should be kind of focused in. And of course, then I spoke about something that's a little rare, that we don't even notice that we do. We may even deny that we don't do, but goes along with caring for yourself, and not just caring, but stepping into emanating or practicing emanating unconditional love towards oneself, and the help that gives to you as you start focusing on observing your mind and observing your emotions. How important I think that is to keeping a kind of benevolent discipline towards yourself that allows for you to let things go and not be stuck on following thoughts as they arise. You can see them rise and more easily accept that they're there, whatever they may be, however random they may be, and then go back to observing your breath and observing any tension that may be creeping into the body and relaxing that. The next thing that I want to talk about with this lesson in meditation has to do with, once you establish those basic things, this really, for me, goes to the meat of what is helpful to me and starts to move into, very interestingly, towards a set of exercises of different things that can be helpful for meditation, including Qigong and sacred movement, which I'll be going into later on as things that help me. They might help you. So in getting into the meat of things, talking about the body, talking about the feeling of being in the body, we kind of take, along with taking several things for granted, we take for granted some sensations in the body that can be very, very helpful for meditation. One of them being the sensation of gravity. Just a sensation of gravity holding you down, embracing you, and I talked about that in an earlier lesson about the sensation of relaxing. Well, this one goes more into that focus of the sensation of gravity. It's constant, it's ever present, and that makes it extremely useful for establishing a very deep, quiet sense of peace in the present moment. because the awareness of it brings you immediately towards the ground of being, towards this moment. The mind will always try and chop things up. It'll create scenarios about the future. It'll create scenarios about the past, or things that have happened, or things that you'd wish had happened, and etc. and so forth. But this kind of focus on, once you relax, once you take your stance or your seat, and feeling that emanating of unconditional love for yourself, so you can establish that kind of benevolent blank sheet towards your thoughts and your emotions, then grounding yourself not just in the breath, which is constant, I hope, but the feeling of being in your body, the ever-present feeling of being in your body and rooting. As you relax, you may learn that you start to kind of get comfortable into a sensation of sinking, and your body becoming very heavy as you sit on the edge of your bed or your chair, or your feet becoming very heavy as you stand and you relax. And it's a very, very good sign. It means you're grounding, you're rooting. And if you're rooting and you're grounding, the great benefit that that has for your mind is that more you're releasing tension, psychological tension that's built up in the body, which has a lot of benefits for circulation, for just regulating of emotions and endorphins through the brain. And the rest you'll have to see for yourself when you meditate. And once again, I do recommend about 5 minutes, and taking that stance of observing the body, observing your feeling as you sit or you stand. And it may seem very kind of a simple-minded, probably ridiculous thing. And like I mentioned in the little addendum, little short blurb on the bottom of the last video, your mind's going to fight this. And it's a curious thing. Anything that threatens your mind's absolute grip on your daily life, because presence, and being present and being meditative, is something that is an anathema to what our conscious brains, or what our cultures even tell us, the way we should be working. We've got to work things out. We've got to think about things. What are we going to do if we put down our brains? If we put down our minds for a moment, all kinds of horrible things are going to happen. But really, the mind's useful for a couple things, but not for being, consciously turning things over left and right. It's really a lot of unnecessary internal dialogue that wastes a hell of a lot of energy for things you can't even possibly imagine you can do if you start to establish some sense of silence, some sense of just being, with life, rather than have to do all the time, whether you're chopping things up by analyzing them or having to constantly rush from one thing to the next and not take at least 5 minutes of the day for yourself to get acquainted with your life, with what it's like to be in your life. And it's a very curious thing, because happiness, bliss, you might just find it suddenly happening. And that's a remarkable thing. And that includes a fourth no BS lesson.